that. We also recognize the enduring presence of all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples. Ontario is covered by 46 treaties and other agreements and is home to many Indigenous nations from across Turtle Island, including the Inuit and the Métis. These treaties and other agreements are agreements to peacefully share and care for the land and its resources. Other Indigenous nations, Europeans, and newcomers were invited into this convent in the spirit of respect, peace, and friendship. We are mindful of broken covenants, and we strive to make this right, with the land and with each other. We are all treaty people. Many of us come here as settlers, immigrants, and newcomers in this generation or generations past. I would like to acknowledge those of us who forcefully came here, particularly as a result of the transatlantic slave trade. Therefore, I honor and pay tribute to the ancestors of Africa, origin, and descent. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joriana. It was lovely having you with us. It's so great to have student voice and your participation. It is so appreciated. At this time, I'd like to remind you of a little bit of housekeeping. Interpretation is available during each presentation. Please post your questions in the question and answer chat. Chat has been disabled. When the presenter has finished, they will go over the questions and answer the ones that have been posted. This series is being recorded. The recording will be posted on the PCEO YouTube channel. The link to this will be posted in the chat. At this time, I'd like to invite our guests or parents or caregivers to please fill out the survey at the end. Why is this important? It informs the work that we do. It helps us to better provide what you need to honor your voices, your requests, your concerns, and to better serve you. At this time, I would like to thank every CSW that's present and to take a minute to ask them to introduce themselves, to put on their camera and say hello and the schools they serve. Because it's a webinar, please put it in the chat because with your support, this presentation has been made possible. At this time, I would like to introduce our facilitators that take the time out of their very busy schedule to be with families and to provide their expertise. And they are Simon Magaya, Laurel Eisenberg, and Yuloma Oneida. Please say hello.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Simon Magaya. I'm the Vice Principal at George B. Little Public School.
Thank you, Simon.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Laurel Eisenberg. I'm currently in the role of a Vice Principal at Cedar Drive Public School. Previously, I was a Special Education Inclusion Consultant at the TDSB.
Thank you, Laurel.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Yuloma Oneida. I'm a middle year student success and transitions counselor with the TDSB.
Thank you.
And now we're going to move to our first presenter from Salbona. We have Sharon Grant.
Hello, good evening, everyone. It's great to be here, and I do hope that everyone gets a lot out of this evening and gets a lot of additional information to take home if you're a family member or if you're supporting families, to be able to take this home and to really support families as they support their loved ones with a disability. So who am I? That's me and my son, who's really the inspiration behind the work of Salbona. Next slide, please. So I'm a parent of a young adult on the autism spectrum. I'm also an elementary school educator, and I'm co-founder of a support group for Black parents and caregivers of a loved one with a disability. Now, this is regardless of the age of the child, and this is regardless of the disability that that child has. I'm also an advocate, and I see myself as a bit of a world traveler, a foodie, and I'm a grandmother of two little lovelies. Next slide, please. And that's our logo. So Salbona, we were originally called the Black Parent Support Group, but of late we've changed our name, and we're now looking to incorporate that name of Salbona Afrocentric Circle of Support. We began pretty much in the pandemic in November 2020. It is something that I wanted for myself as a parent raising a child with a disability. Although I was a part of many parent support groups, I felt the need to be a part of a group, a space where myself as a Black caregiver could share my experiences and learn from others as a Black caregiver, because I just didn't find that a lot of those questions or concerns I had were being addressed. So as I mentioned earlier, this group is for specifically not with regards to the Black children, but the caregivers themselves who identify as Black, supporting a child of any age with any type of disability. So we currently have an email membership list of over 180 members. And this is again since November 2020. So of course, it speaks to the void that we've been able to fill in the lives of a lot of people from mostly across Ontario, but we do have membership from the East Coast, from across the United States, from the Caribbean and Africa. And the name change that we made, Salbona, it's a Zulu word and it means I see you. And the reason why we decided to go with that name for our group is that is something that many of our families have felt not seen when they're trying to advocate for their children in the school system or in the health system. And then they feel that sometimes their child is not seen. So we want to make sure that we have created a group where Black families and their children know that they are being seen. Next slide, please. So this was our kickoff event that took place this past August. We are the very happy recipients of a 3-year grant from the Ontario Trillium Foundation to further the work that we do. And I do want to make it clear that the work that we do is focused on the caregiver. I believe many of the agencies you'll hear from tonight definitely do work with caregivers, but they will also do a programs for the children. Our focus is on the caregiver because we really believe that when that caregiver is strong, when they feel empowered and educated, and that they have the necessary tools to advocate for their child, the loved one, their outcomes can increase that much more. Next slide, please. And that was again from our kickoff event. And that's my husband, Clovis. And we have started the group together. Next slide. So a little bit more about the group itself. We look to empower, to educate, and to enlighten. As I mentioned earlier, we really want to be there to empower parents. Again, the power is within the parents. Sometimes under the stress, the strain of raising that loved one, they forget the power that's within. And so in creating a safe space, and currently it's a virtual space, we meet twice a month virtually. And so in creating the safe space with a cultural lens, we hope that through that we are empowering our educators. Through having reflective guest speakers every month, so we do one meeting per month, where we have a guest speaker. Usually we try to find someone who is from the Black African community. We do our best, but if not, again, if they have that knowledge, that's what's most important. So that again, we can give our families the tools that they need to advocate for their children, whether it be in the education system, whether it be in community, whether it be in the health system. And we get speakers to speak on topics that parents have brought to our attention, topics that are of interest or of need to our family members. We are encouraging families to do peer mentoring. So again, myself, my son now is 25. We have families, actually just received a call from a parent this evening. Actually, it's a grandparent of a 3-year-old child who was just recently diagnosed with autism. So we do a lot of mentoring there where those who have kind of been there, done that, can mentor and support and give advice about the do's and the don'ts and the hills and the valleys of supporting their child. Come in the new year, we're going to be starting a book club. And this is a book club where we are looking at how do we create a good life, for our loved one. So the work that we do is definitely looking at the school years, but definitely looking at those post 21 years that are so crucial that right now, as parents in the school system, you are building the foundation for those post high school years. We also have advocacy opportunities. So we try to engage our parents to get involved, to let their voice be heard, and to bring our voice as Black caregivers of loved ones with disabilities to tables where normally we haven't sat at. So we do have some of our family members who sit on some of our special education advisory committees across the GTA. We do participate in various studies with Holland Bloorview, with Surrey Place Center. We engage in focus groups, and we try to have our families involved in political campaigns as well, because we have a lot to say, and we're trying to remind our families that, hey, you know what, let's help you find some forms to have your voice be heard. Next slide, please. Because we believe it takes a whole village to raise a child. Next slide. And so again, we are here, speaking through the school system. Those of us who are here as guest speakers this evening, we represent community, and many of you are here as the family. And at the center of all of this is the child. So again, that whole village involves school, home, community, with child at the center. Next slide, please. And this is a flyer. So for anyone who wants further information about our meeting dates and times and so on, we do have a website, but I can also have this flyer shared with those in attendance this evening. There's no membership fee. All are welcome. Again, as long as you identify as a Black caregiver, because this is a unique group, and we'll definitely share this information so that anybody can join. So please share with others as well. Next slide, please. And again, we do have some funding from the Ontario Caregiver Organization, as well as the Ontario Trillium Foundation, and that's our family. And again, that's Isaiah, who definitely has been the inspiration behind this work that my husband and I have decided to take on. Next slide. And again, we will share this contact information. And so in completing that survey at the end of the evening, if you need contact information for any of the agencies that will be presenting this evening, please make sure you fill out that survey so that you can get that contact information for yourself and or for other loved ones, family, friends, friends of your faith groups and so on, who may need this information, and to be able to contact any of the agencies presenting this evening. And that's it for me. Thank you so much. And now I'll introduce our next speaker for the evening, who is Shreya Agnihotri from SAC Autism Center.
Shreya, we can't hear you. You need to come off mute. Speak now, Shreya, and we let you know. No, we still can't hear you.
Shreya's just logging out, and then she's going to be logging back in.
Thank you, Simon.
We should move on to the next group. Shall we move to the next group? Do you want to do it?
Should we see if there's any questions from our last presenter, if there, while we're waiting for a minute or two?
Are you able to hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, thank God. Okay. I just need permission to share my video. I'm so sorry about that. No problem. Go up here, see if you can get it. No, I have to do it. It says that I can't share my video.
Just 1 second. We just
Don't worry.
making you
Sorry.
co-host.
Thank you.
Are you okay now? Shreya, you can go ahead now.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to welcome all the families and caregivers who have joined us today and my colleagues from other organizations to share such valuable information. It's truly inspiring to hear about all the work everyone is doing in our communities. So my name is Shreya. I'm one of the social workers at SAC Autism Center, and I'm part of the Urgent Response Services program. I do have some of my coworkers here as well from the Entry to School program, Manira Kilji, Sarah Levy, and Amy. So what is SAC Autism Center? We've been around since 2008, supporting the needs of children, youth, and adults who are diagnosed with autism. And believe it or not, it all started in the basement of a temple, and now we have 2 centers with a variety of programs, servicing over 600 families per year. SAC's main focus is operating through an inclusive lens to ensure all cultures and ethnicities are represented and supported when seeking services. We are situated near the hub of Scarborough, near 401 and McCowan, and our new center is off of Birchmount and Ellesmere. So the programs that we offer are ABA, speech language therapy, occupational therapy. We provide entry to school, foundations for success, case management, creative visual arts, and a Just Dance program. So what is ABA really? It is an evidence-based intervention that focuses on how behaviors change, what in their environment affects it, and how learning takes place. Speech therapy supports individuals in developing communication skills such as clarity, voice, fluency, and sound production. Occupational therapy supports and individuals with their oral fine gross motor skills like getting dressed, eating, play skills, and managing sensory skills. So to begin with, our Foundations for Success, the program will help young children learn in a supportive and therapeutic learning environment based on the principles of ABA. Our programming is enhanced with the involvement of a multidisciplinary team using a speech language therapist, occupational therapist, and instructor therapists. So our Entry to School program, it supports children with the autism spectrum disorder between the ages from 3 to 6 years old who are just entering school in kindergarten or grade 1 for the first time. Families will be sent invitations by the ministry to register, and this 6-month group program will focus on helping children develop school readiness skills in communication, play, social interaction, behavior, self-management, learning, and focus. At the end of the group program, children can receive individual transition supports as they enter the school, and these supports can include observations, in-school support with consultations with the classroom teacher, as well as families. And these staff members are known as transition facilitators during their first 6 months in school. So SAC has 3 arts programs available in music, visual arts, and dance. The neurologic music therapy curriculum has been developed by Annie Bird and an experienced music therapist. So this curriculum is an evidence-based practice that utilizes the latest research in music, cognitive neuroscience, and auditory perception. All music therapy interventions implemented in this curriculum have been founded on procedures that have been proven to be effective in clinical settings. The dance program uses dance as a vehicle to encourage the continuous discovery of new movement, inspire self-expression and creativity. And our visual arts program has been created by a celebrated Toronto artist and muralist Amir Akbari, who brings over 10 years of experience supporting individuals with exceptionalities and creative development and expression. So I wanted to highlight our caregiver program that has also been bought out from Autism Ontario to provide chapters all over the province. It's a free family support program to support caregivers in the development of their children with autism. I highly recommend all parents to join this program, as your own mental health to be taken care of is very vital for you to continue on supporting your children. And this support is provided through a combination of support group discussions, expert-led workshops, and social leisure activities. So we also offer case management services at SAC. So we support with a new diagnosis orientation. You'll be meeting with me or my colleague Manira. We have next steps in locating services, so service navigation, even applying for funding applications. I can totally understand it can be very overwhelming. So we do provide support with that. So Ontario Autism Program, assistance for children with severe disabilities, special services at home, we can support you with that as well. So before we get into it, I wanted to share this video from one of our clients.
Limited to any catchment area, is that correct?
Yes, so the way we describe who can access our services is that if you can drive here, then we serve everyone.
Okay. All right.
Autism is a journey I never expect, but I sure do love my tour guide. Autism or autism spectrum is a type of disability. There is an autism spectrum because people have different levels of autism. Usually, people with autism have a hard time communicating. Some people cannot speak properly or do not talk at all. I have autism. When I was a kid, I had a hard time living with autism. I couldn't make any friends in my school, and I had a hard time communicating with them. But then, one day, my family took me to a program known as SAC. When I first went into the center, I saw a lot of volunteers helping out with many kids, and it made me realize I was not the only one who had autism.
We lost audio, just so you know, we lost audio.
Along the way, every time I approve something about autism, I can see a light through my dark tunnel, and that tunnel is hope for me in the future. As Carrie Margot said, autism cannot define me. I define autism.
Thank you so much for sharing the video. We all love technology and it's always working when we need it to. So I'm so glad I could share this. I'll just hop on back to the rest of my presentation today. So I wanted to share that as SAC, we really value having a community. And so I wanted to share about our annual fundraising program where it employs young adults as well. So it's called the Goodness Gift at SAC, and this comes around annually during the holidays. And we train and employ young adults to have access to support even after they're out of school. So they're engaged throughout all aspects of the team with processing inventory, management, packaging, and delivery of goods. And it's a way to fundraise as well for our services here. Another way that we also build our community is that we have a walkathon every year where we invite everyone to join and challenge each other in physical activities while also fundraising. And it's a really good time, and we go outside when the weather is so great. And the whole motive is that we can also support more families and expand our arts programs. Our hope is to also eventually develop an arts hub at SAC as well. So that's on our mind too. So I wanted to share, because I know a lot of you will be hearing a lot about different programs and services for your child. I just want all of you to take a moment to acknowledge your own feelings and how you're feeling as a parent. It is normal to feel anxious. You will be experiencing new thoughts, new experiences, meeting a bunch of new people with, names that you might not remember. And just remember, it is normal to feel anxious and overwhelmed, and help is available. What's really important is accepting that your child will reach different milestones on their own time. And it's really easy to worry about the future. I do that all the time, but try to focus on the present and focus on your responsibility for the day. Lastly, don't forget to celebrate your child. It is so important to, while we're filling out all these forms and meeting with a bunch of professionals, a lot of the focus could be on areas they need to improve. Remember, your child has many strengths and interests, and ask them, how do they see the world? I would like to thank you for joining us today. And here's my team's contact information if you have any more questions. And we're open to any questions as well right now.
So we have a couple of questions here. I think it sounds like you've set some time aside here. One is, my child has moderate autism and seems to fall through the cracks for support. She's in the gifted program and people assume she needs no support. Can SEAC help?
For sure. So I think your first option would be to reach out to us through our case management program. And that's where we do, through our intake, we ask questions, we can problem solve and see where we can support you. Maybe our center has services that could support, but even other community resources, we can brainstorm together.
We have another question. What does SAC mean? Please share contact info.
So originally when SAC was developed, it stood for South Asian Autism Awareness Center, but we do serve, all walks of life and all communities, but that was our initial name, with our goal to support all groups and being very inclusive in the way that we practice our services.
We did have a question previously that I responded to. It was about, does SAC support children with ADHD diagnosis? And what I said, it is for students with an autism diagnosis, but some children with autism also have ADHD. So you would support in that capacity, but you can respond to that.
Okay, I may have missed what the question was about. Helping children with ADHD. Yeah. So a lot of children that do come to SAC, they have a diagnosis with autism, but even other diagnoses. So, we can work our way to see how we can support you. And like I said, if we don't have services that would be supporting the ADHD aspect, we can always brainstorm together and find resources in the community to make sure that is also supported well.
So do you support children that do not have a diagnosis of autism? I think that's the question too.
Oh, sorry. I believe it has to be a primary diagnosis of autism, just because a lot of the services also maybe coming through the Ontario Autism Program with OAP. But correct me if I'm wrong, if someone else wants to jump in. Yes, it must be a diagnosis of autism. Okay, yeah.
There's a long question here. I have a son who has been diagnosed with ASD when he turned 2 in February 2022. I applied for Ontario Autism Program the same day, and I'm still waiting. If I would like to apply, oops, sorry, the question moved. I would like to apply for the entry to school program. Do I need an invite from the ministry, or is there an avenue I can take to get this program started for my son when he turns 3? He has been in speech therapy and OT weekly since, and I feel that this early intervention has made him milestones, but I would like to keep that going. Is there a resource for entering to school without the need for an invite via Ontario Autism Program?
Great. I believe we have Sarah from Entry to School from SAC. If you wanted to unmute, she's still there.
Hi, I'm here. Yes, hi. So for the Entry to School program, you do need a specific invite from the ministry to join through OAP, but we do have the FFS program, which is a more fee-for-service program, which runs similarly, and that's something you could join without an invitation at SAC. So there's a couple of options there.
Somebody asked, is there a cost for reaching out?
No, so our case management services are free. I did include my email in the presentation, but I can add it in the chat again if you want to reach out to either myself or our intake team, and you can reach out from there.
And someone asked, is SAC only offered to families in Scarborough? You said as long as you can drive to the center, you are serviced.
Yes.
And somebody asked, how old was that child when they joined the program, the student in the video?
Student in the video. I'm actually not sure how old he was, but I would believe he was still in elementary school when he started getting services at SAC.
Okay. And is entry to school only for first-time students? Yes. Example, went to the school in kindergarten, now in grade 1. Oh, yes. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, you'd have to be entering school for the first time.
Okay, just for the sake of time, these questions will be answered, but if we can move on to the next presenter, and we will be addressing these questions. And for presenters that can answer the questions in the chat or in the Q&A, please feel free to do so. Thank you.
Now we would like to welcome Robin Lister from BGC East Scarborough.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for being here this evening. And I'm very excited that there's so many presenters as well, people that I have worked with in the past. BGC East Scarborough is a social, educational, recreational organization, and we provide a range of services, sort of a lifespan of services from birth all the way through to adulthood. And so there are many different things that children and youth and families could access in the East Scarborough community. If you're familiar with the East Scarborough community, we're located down on Galloway Road, so Galloway and Kingston Road. If you're really familiar with that community, you're going to know that we are that very colorful building with the mural all around the outside of the building beside Maplewood High School. And that mural was actually designed and painted by Amir Akbari, who used to work for us before he went to work at SAC. So lots of interconnection happening between our organizations. The youngest of our programs are for our little ones. We have licensed childcare and we have early years services. So our licensed childcare programs, we have 8 different locations in the East Scarborough community, and there are programs ranging from children at birth right up to 12 years old. And because they're licensed programs, every single one of those childcare centers has access to a resource consultant as a part of the Toronto Children's Services Every Child Belongs model. And a resource consultant supports children with extra support needs in their licensed childcare program to ensure that the staff have the tools they need to make sure that children are moving forward in their development. So certainly all of our licensed childcare centers are inclusive and are utilizing resource consultation, but any licensed childcare center in Toronto has access to this. So if you are a parent of a little one attending childcare, then you can be accessing that if you haven't already. And if you're not sure about it, speak with the supervisor at your childcare center and ask about resource consultation, ask about the Every Child Belongs model. Our early years program, so early on child and family centers, we have 3 different sites in East Scarborough, and these are drop-in programs for parents and children. They come together. They're generally serving 0 to 6 years old, and all of our early on programs are supported by an in-house inclusion facilitator. So the inclusion facilitator moves from program to program, different days. She's at different early on programs. And her role is to, again, support the staff as well as the families to develop inclusive programming, to access important resources and services. So again, if you're attending any of our early on centers, and we have one on site at our building at Galloway Road, we have one at our main site, which is Orchard Park. It's a little further along, sort of Kingston and Lawrence area. And then we also have one in Corvette Public School at Kennedy and Eglinton. And if you're accessing any of those, ask to speak with our inclusion facilitator. What you should also know is if you're not living in the East Scarborough community, but you are accessing an early on center somewhere else in the city, again, Toronto's Every Child Belongs model has resource consultants that can come to those other early on programs and support as well. So you can ask your early on program leaders about that. I've included contact information on each slide so that if you were wanting to, oh, we've jumped ahead a couple. We're going to back up just one if we could. There we go. Thanks. If you're wanting to connect to any of our managers to ask about these programs, the information is there on the slide. And I understand that this recording will be available for people as well, but you're also welcome to ask about this, to connect with me, to connect with Donna, and we can get you that information. Now we're going to go to the next slide, which is about inclusion services. So my role at BGC East Scarborough is Senior Manager of Inclusion Services. So we have 3 key programs under Inclusion Services. One is Resource Consultation Services. So we're part of Belongs model that I described to you. So we go out to childcare centers in the community to make sure that children with extra support needs receive the support, the staff receive the support, the families receive the support that's needed to ensure inclusion. We also collaborate with Catholic Cross-Cultural Services to support newcomer families, and in particular, newcomer families with children with extra support needs. The program is called Families in Settlement Together. So there are a range of children's groups and parent groups, parent workshops that are offered through Families in Settlement Together. The third program that's really a part of Inclusion Services is called Circle of Friends. And Circle of Friends is it's a sensory motor gym program on Saturday afternoons. So we have a gym in our building, and children with extra support needs and their families, so siblings, parents, can come and explore the gym, utilize the equipment and activities that are put out, and we change them up every week. And have that opportunity to explore in a way that makes sense for them. We know that for children with extra support needs, sometimes being in more traditional programs can be a bit confining. Circle of Friends is an opportunity to explore in a manner that works for the child and helps them to get some of that sensory input they might need, to get some of that gross motor action that they might need. So if you're interested in any of these programs in particular, you can certainly contact me, and my email is on the slide, and I can let you know how to sign up for different things, how to connect to different programs. So we'll move on to our next slide, which is about children and early teen services. In addition to our licensed childcare programs, we also run before and after school programs for children from 6 to 14 years old, and we have them in 15 different schools in the East Scarborough community. So it's quite possible that they may be in schools that your children are attending. I believe we have one in Simon's school, actually. So these programs run summer before sort of breakfast programs, all are after school programs. They also, most of them turn into school holiday and summer camp programs. And whenever possible, we ensure that children with extra support needs are included. And we do that by having our internal resource consultation services provide informal support to our programs as well. The other thing that we ensure happens for all of our staff who work in our after-school programs is they are all trained in High Fives, Principles of Healthy Child Development. So we're a High Five accredited agency. And it's really important that children have those opportunities for recreation with their peers, which is very different than being in school classrooms with their peers. This is an opportunity to engage in sporting types of activities, creative arts activities, cooking, computers. We have programs around technology and coding as well. So there's a big range of things that children in our after-school programs get the opportunity to take part in. So our senior manager of this department is Trishelle Primo, and again, her email is there. And if you're phoning her or emailing her to get a sense of whether or not it might be a good fit for your child, mention that you came to this event, mention my name. Say Robin Lister suggested I give you a call, because Trishelle would then ask me maybe come and we can all sit down and talk about how we make this program work. How do we make sure that it's successful? We're going to move to our next slide, which is about youth programming. Oh, it went one too far. We'll back up one. So youth and community outreach services. This is really for our 14 plus, our older teens, our youth, and it really is social, educational, and recreational. We also focus on development of life readiness skills. Some of our youth programs are drop-in, other are registered programs, and they are open to including youth with extra support needs. And again, the team in youth and community outreach services would call on inclusion services for additional support in planning to make sure that the youth's experience was successful. So our manager in youth and community outreach services is Kareem Milson, and his email is there as well. We're going to move to our last slide, which is volunteer services. And volunteer services is significant for two reasons. One, we have many, many volunteers in service all the time, supporting all of our programs to ensure that we have extra people and extra bodies in programs so that the experience of all of our children and youth and families can be more successful. But the other thing that our volunteer coordinator, Michelle Joseph, does is she works to try and support volunteer experiences for youth and adults with extra support needs as well, to figure out what would be a meaningful volunteer experience for them so that they can gain volunteering hours for their high school diploma or gain some form of community experience, work experience, and further experience interacting with others to prepare for whatever steps are next for them. So that is BGC East Scarborough in a nutshell. And certainly there will be other questions I know will come up, but we're going to move on to our speakers from Strides Toronto, Alicia Adams-Mitchell and Chantel Patterson.
Thank you, Robin. Thank you so much. We are so excited to be here. It's a very special evening, special event. So Thank you very much. I think it is important for us to note that many of you may recall Strides Toronto, previously known as Aisling Discovery's Child and Family Centre. We did merge with East Metro Youth Services in January of 2021 to form Strides Toronto, and here we are. So my name is Chantal Patterson, and I am one of the intake workers here at Strides Toronto in the Autism Services Department. And my colleague,
Alicia, my name is Alicia Adams Mitchell, and I'm also one of the intake workers here. Me and Chantal, we've been with the agency for a long while, so a lot of parents who may have older children that have a diagnosis will definitely, you've been in contact with one of us at one point in time.
That's right. That's right. Thank you. Okay, so how to get started? Thank you. So to first get started with Strides Toronto Autism Services, we do invite parents and caregivers to contact our intake line by calling the number on your screen or by sending an email. You will be asked a few questions just to ensure eligibility, and you'll be requested to submit your child's confirmation of diagnosis or to submit your Ontario Autism Program reference number. Once we receive this documentation, we will schedule an intake needs assessment where we can discuss your goals and determine your child's learner level, which will inform treatment recommendations using the principles of applied behavior analysis. Next slide, please. So what exactly is ABA? I know Shreya had kind of mentioned a little bit earlier what it was, but ABA is based on the science of learning and behavior. It is an approach to understanding behavior and how it is affected by the environment. Now, we can apply a set of strategies to increase the behavior we want to see more of, and this would be the communication, the social skills, independence within daily living. And we can also apply techniques to decrease behaviors that might be getting in the way of learning or maladaptive behaviors, such as aggression to self or to others, just as an example. Data is a huge component to ABA because this will inform whether our interventions are effective or if we need to make changes to those interventions. Okay, next slide, please. So these are the services that Strides Toronto can offer families, which we'll go into a little bit of detail in just a moment. But I would like for you to draw your attention to the text written under the purple boxes. So you're going to notice that some programs indicate funded by invitation only and fee for service. So there are 4 programs offered to families at no cost and are funded by the Ministry of Children, Community and Social Services. Their caregiver mediated early years program and the entry to school program are 2 programs that are by invitation only. Okay, so invitations will be sent to eligible families by the ministry. Our fee for service programs, which Alicia will highlight shortly, these are the programs available for purchase. So you can use your Ontario Autism Program funding or pay by an alternate means such as out of pocket or for some families, extended health benefits. Okay, next slide, please. We offer foundational family services, and the foundational family services are offered to any family who is registered in the Ontario Autism Program. These are services that are aimed to provide parents and caregivers with some strategies to support their child's needs. We offer different parent education workshops. We have a brief targeted consultation program where you have access to a behavior therapist to address one goal, and that is a one-to-one service. We offer the Triple P program, which is a 9-week positive parenting program. We have a parent support group that meets once a month for about an hour and a half, and there are different topics that are covered. It is facilitated by a parent who has a child with autism and also a Strides Toronto staff member. We have the Parent Stress Intervention Program, and this program here focuses at providing strategy to manage our stress. It also incorporates interventions from the field of positive psychology and cognitive behavioral therapy. We have our Facing Your Fears program also, which is a parent-child program based on using cognitive behavioral therapy and applied behavior analysis to help children tackle anxiety through group therapy sessions. Okay, next session or next slide, please. Our caregiver mediated early years program is a funded program. It is offered to eligible families by invitation, and it is geared for families who have children up to the age of 4 years. So we at Strides offer 2 different programs. We have the Project Impact. This program is a 12-week program that focuses on social engagement, language, imitation, and play skills through parent-only sessions and coaching sessions. And we also have the Pivotal Response Treatment Program. It is also offered at 12 weeks, and it uses the combination of ABA principles and strategies to improve social and communication skills while decreasing challenging behaviors. Okay, next slide, please. Next, we have our entry to school program, which Shreya from SAC has also sort of covered. But this program, again, just to highlight, is by invitation only to families who have children ages 3 to 6 years old. This program focuses on preparing children with school readiness skills in these key areas. Entry to school also offers transition supports as they enter school. And this program is designed for those families of children who have not yet begun school yet. So that is it for me. I'm going to pass you over on to Alicia, and she's going to highlight some of our other programs, including our urgent responses services.
Thank you very much, Chantal. So just continuing on, so our urgent response services, known as URS, is one of our funded programs. It is one of the more newer programs that the ministry has released. And so to register for the program, that is centralized through the lead agency, Surrey Place Center. So the phone number that you see on your screen, you can give that a call, or families can also call 311 and they can ask to be registered for that program. The goal of this program is to really help to prevent a child, youth who has a diagnosis of autism from going into crisis. So it's really about trying to stabilize and prevent any of their behaviors from further progressing. It's really meant to stabilize the situation and really to reduce the risk of harm or youth harming themselves, others, or property destruction. For children, so it is available for children and youth 0 to 18, and it is meant to be a short-term 12-week program where families are able to access, typically it's respite that's provided. They do have access to a care coordinator during their time, and then as well, they do get a behavior therapist as well. And so really it's meant to provide any sort of come up with a plan, a care plan that will help try to mitigate any of the issues that are at hand, okay? Next slide, please. So our core clinical services, as Chantal mentioned, is our fee-based services. So families can use their OAP funding for this program, for these programs, I should say. We offer fee-based services, which is ABA therapy. In different modalities. So we do offer group-based services where children will come in typically once or twice a week. Sometimes sessions are 2 hours in length, sometimes typically they're 2 hours in length, but either once or twice a week. For our group-based services, it really depends on what the goals of the program are. Some of our programs focus more on social skills development, some focus more on the communication aspect, and then we do have some that are also on daily care needs, and then we do have some where it offers for some of the older youth with employment and volunteering services as well. Our group-based services typically are offered 4 times throughout the year. So we have services that run from September to December, from January to March, from April to June, and then as well in the summertime over those 2 months. Services are individualized within those 12 weeks. There are certain goals that children will have to meet. And then as well, we do have our one-on-one therapy that we do offer in our EBI, which is our early behavioral intervention program. Typically, that's for children aged 0 to 8 years. That's our most intensive service that we do offer. And so with that program, sometimes children are typically withdrawn from school to attend those services throughout the daytime. Okay. Next slide. Yeah. So to register, so as mentioned before, a lot of our families, to access any of our programs, with the exception of fee-for-service, as Chantal mentioned, you can choose to pay out of pocket, use your extended healthcare benefits, but most of our families that come to us do use their OAP funding. So we strongly do encourage families to register by calling the number or the email that they see on their screen. Next slide, please. And so we do primarily service families in the Scarborough area. However, families, as long as, I guess, as Zach has mentioned as well, as long as you can drive to us, we definitely can offer services to children and families all over the city. Some of our programs with the pandemic, we did move to providing services virtually. And so we are moving to more in-person services now, especially for some of our group and one-on-one programs. But these are primarily the locations that we do offer services. During the summer months for our group-based services, we do tend to rent out space from various schools. And so whenever an offer is made for service, then that location is disclosed to the family at that time. And as well, so these are some of the other services that Strides provides. So families, you know, that have all sorts of, or children that have all sorts of diagnoses are able to access these services, including families and children with a diagnosis of autism. So we do offer some trauma treatment. We do have respite. We do offer residential treatment, community counseling, and various other programs that you can see there. So if you have any questions, we just strongly encourage families to give us a call. All of our workers are pretty knowledgeable about the OAP, about how to navigate that. If there's any questions that families may have about any services, about our services or other services in the community, we're definitely here to help. And so there are 2 different numbers there for our mental health programs. If families are looking to register, there is 1 telephone number there. We may possibly be moving over to eventually having 1 phone number, but while we're in this transition period, there are 2 telephone numbers to contact for our autism programs. And that is it. I don't know if anybody has any questions or if we want to save that for the end of the presentation.
But give us a follow on our social media. Lots of great information from various programs and workshops that we offer for free, or the parent support group. If you give us a follow on our Instagram, all the information is there, and so that is encouraged.
I believe we also have a Facebook page as well, so families can access us either on Instagram or Facebook.
Thank you.
Next slide. And now I'd like to introduce Kelsey McDaniel from Autism Ontario.
Hi, good evening. Thank you so much for having me this evening. So I'm Kelsey, and I am the Education Program Coordinator at Autism Ontario. So this is a newer position for me. I used to support families directly with a lot of service navigation and support around funding. So that's primarily what we'll be talking about tonight. I know it's been really helpful that Strides and SAC has gone over a lot of information and services that can be accessed through the Ontario Autism Program. So I'm hoping that this will be a good summary to kind of show you a bit of the bones of that and how it all works behind. So a lot of that has been explained of what you can get locally. So Autism Ontario is a provincial-wide organization. So I myself am based in Ottawa, but we do have services and supports all across the province. So just to kind of go over first, we'll talk about the Ontario Autism Program, and then I'll move into some additional funding programs that you can also look into. I believe that a funding checklist has also been shared. So this can be a lot of information. It's very overwhelming at first, especially especially if you're a family who has a new diagnosis, or maybe this is a journey that you've been on for a while. It certainly can be easier when you can reach out to some organizations for this support. So that's what we're here to do, and I'm going to explain to you a little bit about how you can go and direct your questions. So a lot of questions might come out of this, since the Ontario Autism Program can seem quite complex, and then we're also going to be talking about other programs as well. So the biggest thing that I want you to take away from this is that Access OAP is here to support families with those questions as we go. So I'll talk a little bit more about what that means, because it might be new to some families who've been on this journey for a while. So the Ontario Autism Program has changed quite a bit over the last few years. So it is now moving toward a new needs-based model, and there are different pillars within that. So the first part of that, which has been mentioned a couple of times, is the foundational family service. And as you can see, this is something that can be accessed immediately once the family has registered for the Ontario Autism Program. It's offered all across the province, and since many of them are virtual, you're not limited to just one regional support provider. So for example, if you're here in Ottawa and CHEO is more of your regional provider, but there's another provider in Toronto who seems like they might have something that fits your needs a little bit better, you can probably also register for that program. So you can kind of look around and see what's available across the province. But these are a lot of different kinds of peer support programs, workshops, and other pieces they'll be mentioning in the following slide. The next has also been mentioned, which is the caregiver mediated early years programs, the entry to school program, and then the core clinical services, which is that actual direct funding that we were talking about so that you can purchase fee for service programs. And then also the urgent response service, which has been explained a little bit as well. So if we can just move to the next slide, I'll just break some of these down a little bit more detail. So the first one, as I mentioned, is foundational family services. So this is something like family and peer mentoring. There's a lot of caregiver workshops and follow-up coaching sessions potentially. So if you have a session that's maybe an introduction to ABA, we've talked about ABA a couple times here, and maybe that's really new to you. So an introduction about what ABA is, and then maybe there's also a follow-up session with a behavioral support provider who can help to explain maybe something in a little bit further detail that's specific to your child. So like I said, brief targeted consultations that may help as well. Transition supports and family resource and clinic days may also be available. So the second one is that caregiver mediated early years programs. So these are aimed to build caregiver capacity and support to help their child's skill development. So this is something that is invitation based, and that's because there is an age criteria. So children 4 and under can receive this caregiver mediated early years program invitation, and then they will be able to choose a provider within their region. And some of those programs, even though the actual criteria for the caregiver mediated early years programs may be 4 and under, there might be different programs that fall within that, specific to organizations in your region, that may also have specific age criteria and goals. They may be split up over multiple weeks or months. So you're kind of looking at some of the options that might work for you. So it's really meant to focus on social interaction, play, communication, emotional development, and adaptive development and self-help skills. We can just move to the next one. Thank you. So that next one is the entry to school program. So again, this is something that is age-based, and it's also specifically for children who are entering school for the first time, whether that is kindergarten or grade 1, depending on when the family has chosen to send their child to school. But it is a specific program that is 6 months for a group program that's focusing on the school readiness piece. So that's an actual kind of that school environment where you'll have a multidisciplinary team helping with school readiness. So what you can expect if you're a family whose child has not entered school yet, then you can expect an invitation around probably the late winter, when you can decide whether or not that's something you'd like to participate in. And then you'll begin that in-center support with the school readiness piece. And then the second part to that is that there's an individual transition support during the first 6 months of the school year. So there's kind of a liaison with the school to ensure that that transition has been successful. And then again, the core clinical services, that is that actual direct funding. So when you are first registering for the Ontario Autism Program, you will be able to access the foundational family services right away. You may be eligible for the caregiver mediated early years programs and the entry to school program while you're waiting for your funding. But then eventually you'll be receiving an invitation to those core clinical services. And this is a needs-based program. So there is a needs determination process that is in place. So it is based on age and an in-depth kind of conversation with a care coordinator to determine your child's needs. And through an algorithm, you'll be able to determine how much funding you'll receive for each given year. So that's a process that you'll go through every year to determine what those needs are. And then you'll be able to find out how much funding you're eligible to receive and then start using it toward those core clinical services, which would be applied behavioral analysis, ABA, speech and language pathology, occupational therapy, mental health and counseling services, and then any other kinds of technology and program materials that are recommended by these regulated professionals. And then we also talked earlier about the urgent response. So that is for families who are registered with the Ontario Autism Program and might meet that specific criteria for the urgent response service, where your child may be experiencing one or more high risk factors that have started to worsen over the last 14 days. So we can move forward. Thank you. So as I mentioned, Access OAP is now in place to support families. So if you have been on this journey for a while, you may have realized that you've had to communicate with so many different service providers. Maybe you were going to Autism Ontario for your service navigation questions, and then to the ministry for other specific questions pertaining to your funding. And then maybe you're also, reaching out to all these different service providers, and can become a lot. And so part of the steps of creating this new needs-based program was helping to create an independent intake organization, which would be one centralized place where you can retrieve the information about your child's funding and also access family support at the same time. So this is now in place, Access OAP. And so anybody, you can even call them right now, whether or not you have received an invitation to create a portal. That might be something that you've heard. So Access OAP will have an online portal where you'll be able to communicate directly with your assigned care coordinator. You'll be able to check on the status of where you are eligible, kind of within those different funding programs, what services you're eligible for. You'll be able to receive your core clinical service invitation within this portal. And so all families registered with the Ontario Autism Program are going to expect an invitation to set this up. However, if you have not received this invitation yet, you can still access family support by just calling Access OAP directly. So during business hours from Monday to Friday, somebody will be available to answer that call. So whether you have a question just about the overall funding or you have questions about services in your area, a care coordinator will be able to answer that call no matter where you are in the province and help with some service navigation questions for there. So the most important thing that I'd like you to take away from this is that if you do have those follow-up questions regarding the Ontario Autism Program or service navigation in general, please call Access OAP during business hours from Monday to Friday, and somebody will be available to help you with that. So this is their contact information now, but I can also enter that in the chat once I'm finished. So if we can just move forward. Thank you. So in addition to the Ontario Autism Program, there are some other funding programs that you can also look into. So assistance for children with severe disabilities. And though this name might sound to you like maybe I'm not eligible for this because my child doesn't necessarily have a severe disability in your opinion, the severe disability is just the language that they use with this particular program. So as we're going to go through, just keep in mind that these are very kind of specific government-made programs, and some of the language might seem a little bit different than some of the language we may use at Autism Ontario or for other organizations. But the next one is special services at home, the disability tax credit, the Easter Seals Incontinence Grant, and other employment and private benefits you may potentially be able to tap into, and funding for respite, recreation, and social programs. So we'll just break these down a little bit further. If we can go to the next slide, thank you. So that first one is assistance for children with severe disabilities. So this is meant to be financial support for low and moderate income families. So it helps to cover some of the extra costs of caring for a child with a disability. So it can be a monthly benefit between $25 to $550 a month. So you're eligible based on a combination of factors. So they'll look at your household income, the size of your family, the severity of your child's disability, and other extraordinary costs related to your child's disability. So there is an application process for this. So looking into the assistance for children with severe disabilities, even if you go and you look right at that on Google, then you'll be able to find the instructions for the applications there. But again, if you have questions about that, you can contact Access OAP for more guidance. There's special services at home. Yeah, sorry. Was there a question there? I just heard someone unmute. No, okay. So special services at home. So this is funding for primary caregiver relief and regulated supports. So this could be yard maintenance and laundry, etc. Activities for personal growth and development, so camps and swimming lessons. And the amount you receive depends on the type and amount of services your child needs. So what other help is available in your community and what kind of supports that you're already receiving. So you'll be able to kind of create an in-depth support for this. Now, one thing that you can access, it is out of Ottawa, this center, but they have, so it's called Service Coordination Support here in Ottawa, but it is an online resource. They've created some instruction videos on how to complete these forms. So I can also enter those in the chat afterwards. They have some in-depth explanations of how you complete the applications for both of these funding sources. So you can just move forward, please. Thank you. So the disability tax credit, this is a federally funded program. So the disability tax credit helps to reduce income tax of caregivers and people with physical or mental impairments. So this is something that you will have to apply for with the support of a clinician, whether that is your doctor or psychologist, or somebody who is able to speak to the needs of your child. And it's broken down into several areas of daily living. And so once you are approved for the disability tax credit, this will also bring you to receive the Canadian child benefit, the child disability benefit. So this is a monthly payment for families who care for a child with severe or prolonged impairments in physical or mental functions. So by applying for that disability tax credit, you're also applying for the child disability benefit. So you don't have to do an additional application afterwards. And also once you have been approved for the disability tax credit, then you're also eligible to open an RDSP, a registered disability savings plan. And so that is another federal program that you can look into, and it is one of those next steps that you'll be offered once you're approved for this disability tax credit. So in addition to that program, there is also the Easter Seals Incontinence Grant. So this is a biannual funding for children between 3 and 18 years with a chronic disability that results in incontinence. So the funding amount depends on your child's age and the cost of their incontinence supplies. So $400 per year or $900 per year. So you can also use employment private benefits. So if you have extended healthcare services, the most commonly funded ones are mental health services. So if you're able to get some of those psychological assessments or some additional mental health services, you can still use your healthcare benefits and then also use the Ontario Autism Program supports afterwards too. So you may want to use your private benefits to see how much you can receive out of that and then pay for the difference with your Ontario Autism Program funding. You may also be able to receive this for speech and language pathology and occupational therapy. We can just move forward, please. So these are some additional services that you might want to tap into. So respite and recreational funding. So Carey's Place Autism Services has children's respite flexible funding. So it's a reimbursement funding for a respite worker, camp fees, and or recreational opportunities. Applications are available from January to March each year. There's also Jumpstart, which is financial assistance for sports and physical activities, including camp. So the eligibility is based on family income. Program criteria is a minimum of weekly participation of 5 weeks. There's also some municipal recreation funding, so specific to each region, varying on the criteria and amounts of funding. So just an example that's in here is the Peterborough recreation fee. So Autism Ontario also has some funding programs as well. So the first one is the one-to-one summer worker reimbursement fund. So that is for if you have hired a one-to-one worker to work directly with your child, or perhaps they are joining your child at camp. This can help to support those fees for that additional one-to-one support worker. So this is based on a lottery. So families are able to apply, and then you'll know whether or not you're receiving it going into the summer, and you'll be able to send in your receipts for those purchases that were made during the summer months and to get that reimbursement. The same works for March break. So if there's March break funding program, if there's March break recreation programs, or again, you've hired that one-to-one worker, you can use the reimbursement fund to help with that weekly payment as well. And then finally, the Easter Seals Access to Entertainment card. So this is a card that you can apply for to be able to support a worker or an additional support person coming with your child to a certain venue. So there's a lot of different venues that are available in this. Again, I keep thinking of Ottawa-based ones, but Calypso, for example, is a provider who offers the access to. So you'd be able to pay for the child to come, and then that worker or parent who's with them, whoever's supporting the child there, will be able to get in for free. So that's how that card works. It has a very small fee to it, and you'll be able to use that at a variety of venues like movie theaters as well. So we can just move forward. So this is just an additional resource. So if you take a look at the Autism Ontario website, you'll be able to find a webinar that was created by Danielle Nolan, who is our subject matter expert in social work. So she has created a workshop that's available in English and French on what to do now that you've received a diagnosis, and different kinds of in-depth explanations on funding outside of the OAP. So if you want a little bit more information that goes beyond the short amount of time we have here tonight, you can also go to our website to look at this. And then finally, we also have some programs available through Autism Ontario. So we offer a variety of events and social learning opportunities, which are meant to be different kinds of events that you can participate in. If maybe your child wants to try something new and you're not sure how that's going to work out, then you know that you're in an environment where the venue is aware that we have families coming with children with ASD. We also know that there's other parents around, and you might want to kind of build your social network in that way, have your child meet other children, siblings can come as well. So we've just been able to reopen our in-person events. So for example, we just had some pumpkin patch events. Usually we have some different kinds of a light at night type of opportunities too around the holidays. So keep an eye out for some of those in-person events, but we also offer kind of a hybrid of some virtual events too, where we can either send kits home for you to be able to work on an activity at home, or join an online magic show, something like that, or a cooking show. Then you'll be able to sign up for any of those. There's also a Toronto region newsletter. So to find out what's going on regionally, you can look at the Toronto region newsletter. And then you can also follow the Toronto region on Facebook as well. Perfect. So this is just your checklist here, like I was mentioning. So these are the different links that you can go to check out all of these funding programs and find the applications there. Great. So this is kind of just our general contact information. So for myself, I'm not in the family support world anymore now that I've moved on to the education program support coordinator. However, you can contact Autism Ontario directly for some general information. You can follow our social media. But most importantly, if you have those questions regarding the Ontario Autism Program or service navigation, then you can reach out to Access OAP. And again, I'll put that information in the chat right now. So I'm happy to take questions, or we can move forward because I know we're coming toward the end. Thank you.
Parents, while you think of your questions, we are going to place a barcode on this. First of all, let us say thank you for taking the time to attend our presentation. We hope that you were able to get some valuable information that you'd be able to use. We know there are more things that we could be spending time doing, but you chose to be here. You told us that you are so interested in your child's achievement and continuing to thrive. I would like to ask parents and caregivers to please take a minute to fill out the survey. This survey is important because not only for us as educators, but for our community partners to be able to understand your needs, your concerns, your thoughts, your questions, and for us to better serve you, honor your voices, and to walk alongside you on your child's educational journey. So at this time, if you can just take your cell phone and take a picture of this barcode, or if you do not have your cell phone with you, please feel free to use the link. At this time, I would like to thank all the presenters, our CSWs, our facilitators, our parents, our caregivers, and Margaret Horvath, who has been so amazing in helping make this presentation possible. Without you, there's so much to learn. We are on this journey of just learning all the different things, opportunities, offers that our children can make use of, our parents that can tap into these things. And I know it's an information overload this evening. There's so much wonderful, valuable information that was shared here, but don't feel that you had to take everything in this evening. We have it recorded and we are happy to share it on the PECO YouTube website. Simon shared it in the link, and if you did not get it, please feel free to email me or text me, and I would be happy to send it to you. At this time, if you have any questions, we have a few minutes for questions. We'd be happy to take these questions, and I know our presenters would be delighted to share any additional information that you feel you need at this time. To our interpreters as well, we are so grateful that you were here. If you don't have questions at this time and you just want to think about what you heard, we offered you a menu. This is the whole idea of giving you choice as to what best, because you know your child best, as to what meets the needs of your child. So please feel free to tap into all these resources and find out what works best for you and your child. If you need any more support, we are always here to walk alongside you. So at this time, I would just like to say, thank you so much for taking the time out of your very busy schedule to be with us. Have a good evening, everyone. Please fill out the survey. It means a great deal to us. It helps us to understand how we can better our practices, and as we serve you, how we can improve.